Roughly 3 months ago, everyone, I released my preview of the DOD Outdoors Ichi one-pole tent. In that episode, I set it up, we went over the features. All in all, for a first look, I was very impressed with this tent. A few weeks later, I set it up again for a waterproof test, an episode which I call a test night. Those episodes are all about the waterproofing of a tent. So we set this up, we tested it out in a moderate rain event, and it leaked, unfortunately. With that testing, the tent leaked in 2 different locations. One, I was able to tell exactly where it came from. The other place is a little bit of a mystery. I'm not really sure where the leaking point was. It's easy to say that I was disappointed with the ultimate results of that rain test because I expected quite a bit more from the tent itself. I have quite a bit of experience with DOD outdoor products, and 99% of the time, they're top notch. But in this case, it was just a flat out failure. If you're interested in the preview or the test night episode, you will find links in the description box down below. After the test night episode went live where the tent failed, I was contacted by DOD Outdoors, and they asked a simple question: where did I get this tent from? Because at the time when I purchased this tent, DOD Outdoors was not being offered in the United States, or at least I didn't think they were. After spotting this tent in a Japanese camping video, I was interested in the brand, I did some searching, and I reached out to an eBay contact of mine, and I asked them if they could purchase this tent for me and ship it to me. That's how I came about owning this tent. At that point, DOD Outdoors responded and said this, and I'm just going to go ahead and read this from my paper here. DOD Japan has a running battle with eBay sellers. DOD doesn't sell on eBay, and the resellers are not allowed to sell on eBay whatsoever. So whatever is listed on eBay is not coming through the official retail channels. They went on to state that there's 4 different avenues of problems when it comes to these sellers selling on eBay. They said there's reseller seconds, and this is where shops dump their return items on eBay. They say that it's illegal to sell products like that as new in Japan, but anything goes on eBay. The next category is use as new. Japanese consumers use the product for a season, clean it up, and then resell it as new. Then there's factory seconds. The factories aren't allowed to sell because they're quality control rejects. Then there's counterfeits, and that's self-explanatory. All of this makes sense, but there's one problem. This is a product that I reached out to a seller to locate for me. They bought it for me and then shipped it to me after I purchased the listing that they ultimately put up for me on eBay. This was not a product that they were selling themselves initially. So is it possible that they were able to locate a counterfeit or a factory second or a return product? I don't know. That seems highly unlikely, but anything's possible. The thing is this: I've purchased from this seller for numerous years. Basically, I made a connection with this seller sometime back when looking for Japanese products. And from there, I was able to ask them basically for whatever I wanted. They would locate it, put up a listing, I would buy it, they would ship it to me. My relationship with them has been just perfect, absolutely perfect. Every product that I've purchased has been top notch, no counterfeits, nothing like that. I will say this: anything is possible. Anyways, folks, I contacted DOD Outdoors again. I explained to them how I came about purchasing this tent. After I sent that email, DOD Outdoors responded again, and they stated that they wanted to send me a brand new tent straight from the factory, a tent that's gone through their quality control checks. And from there, they would like for me to rerun my tests with the DOD Ichi one-pole tent. From there, I agreed to the DOD Outdoors proposal, and right here is the new tent. But since I'm impartial, I will have to say this. With DOD Outdoors saying that the tent that I previously purchased was possibly a counterfeit, or it had some sort of issue, or it was being sold in some sort of malicious way, there's some of you who are going to say this about DOD Outdoors. They're going to say that the tent that was sent to me by DOD Outdoors was hand-selected for this test. Do I think that's taken place? I do not. But at the same time, the tent that I purchased on eBay, I do not believe for a second was counterfeit or was being sold in such a malicious way. It is my preliminary assumption that the tent was legit, just as the new one's going to be legit. And unfortunately, I think the leaking that took place was due to some sort of defect and also a design flaw. And I'll talk more about these issues in just a bit. But for now, what I want to do is set up both tents, the previous version, the new version, and let's compare them. Let's see if we can find any differences between the two. If it's a counterfeit, we will be able to tell a difference. I'm going to go ahead, set up the tents, and I'll bring you back in just a second. Boom, just like that, the tents have been set up. This is the new one, this is the old one. You can see here on the new one that the guidelines have not been used. On the old one, they have been. That's how you can tell the difference. During the setup of each of these tents, I paid close attention to the materials, to the small details, and I've noticed absolutely no differences between the two. The old version may look a little bit taller than the new one. That's only because there's a slope here on the ground. It's slightly raised. In the end, these tents are exactly the same. The materials are the same. The inners, same. The tent stakes, same. The poles, the exact same. Based upon my initial look of these tents, they're the same, folks. There are no differences. There's a few things that I want to check out here when it comes to the new version and compare it to the old version. The first one being the storm flap that goes over the zipper for the front door. One of the points of leakage for the old version of this tent was the storm flap. The storm flap that goes over the zipper is quite small. Too small, in fact, to offer adequate protection. So let's compare these. Let's see if there's any sort of differences. With the storm flap, there should be 4 placements of Velcro to hold it into place. 1, 2, 3, and 4. As far as the size of the storm flap, it's exactly the same. We're looking at like 1 inch of protection, and that's simply not enough for this tent. If you have a wind-blown rain, it can go behind that small storm flap. And that's what I believe happened with one of the leak points on the initial tent. The next thing I want to compare is the tag that's on the inside of the tent. Let's see if there's any differences there. Made in China, T547BK. Let's go see if there's a difference. Looking at this tag, there's absolutely no difference. T547BK 150621, made in China. What I want to focus on next is the seam tape along the door with the fly on each tent. I noticed with the previous version that some of the seam tape overlapped the zipper. Let's see if it's the same on the new version. This is what I'm talking about, folks. So on the other side, you have that Velcro that holds the storm flap. You have seam tape over those stitches. And you can see how it begins to run off of the tent material onto the zipper. This is the old version. Let's go over to the new one. Check this out. It's exactly the same. On the fly, onto the zipper. It's the exact same, folks. After setting up both of these tents and comparing them very closely, I see absolutely no differences between the two. One of the reasons why the first tent leaked was because of the small storm flap that goes over the zipper. Nothing's changed, nothing's different. If the situation's right, the wind is blowing the rain in just the right way, this new tent will leak as well. The big question is, what about the secondary leaking point? Unfortunately, with the old tent, I do not know where the water came from, so I can't say whether or not it's going to be an issue with the new tent. There's only one thing that we can do. Get this tent out and waterproof test it. That is what I will have to do, and coming up very soon, I will have that episode up. I'm going to make an overnight adventure with it. I'm going to take out the new version of this tent, set it up, we'll camp in it, and we'll see what happens. Is it going to leak? I do not know. I can tell you this though, with a 100% certainty, there's a potential for leaking, and it doesn't matter if it's the old version or the new version. Again, it goes back to that storm flap. It's about 1 inch wide, and the simple fact is this: it's not enough protection to cover that door. I'm glad there's a storm flap there, don't get me wrong, but it needs to be just a little bit bigger. And that's a recommendation that I've made to DOD Outdoors. Will they listen to this recommendation? I have no idea. I will do a dedicated test night episode for the new one, so if you don't want to watch that overnight trip, you don't have to. You can get straight to the information. I'm excited to get this thing out and to get started with the testing because I have no idea which way this is going to go. And honestly, unless the tent leaks, I'm not sure exactly what we're proving. When it comes to the initial version that I purchased, there could have been a defect with the seam tape. That sort of thing happens. It doesn't mean that every single Ichi tent is going to leak. If the new version leaks as well in the same locations, then there's a greater problem there. And that's information that I want to present to you all. Again, here with the channel, I'm agenda free, I'm impartial. If there's a problem, I'll show you that problem. I'll explain that problem. If it doesn't leak, I'll show that as well. I'm here to share information, and that's it. That's what the Outdoor Gear Review is all about. So with that being said, everyone, make sure to comment down below and share your thoughts. Do you think the new version is going to leak? I do appreciate you all for joining me for this episode. Hit the like button before you go. Put your predictions down below, and I'll be back very soon with the results from my test night episode. Be well, folks. Take care. Strength and honor. Bye.